Okay, good morning. This is Dr. John Bennett, broadcasting from Miami Beach, our studios in Miami Beach. We have the pleasure today of having Dave Doherty, mHealth guru from Ireland. He's going to talk to us specifically about one topic: why is telemedicine a bust, as well as we'll probably delve into other areas of mHealth. Uh, David, I've had a few webcasts with him, very engaging fellow, and he's been around mHealth a long time, ever since I think the start of the iPhone. So welcome, David. How you doing today?
Very well, and long before that, I had a mobile phone at medical school. I had internet access at medical school when, I was the only person in the place with a mobile phone. They were still using pages. So I was doing mobile health and working in telemedicine long before it became a buzzword. And I think that's where this all started. There was an article written by Christine Lafar, which just brief people on this in over on CNBC, and it was why telemedicine has been such a bust so far. And it's such a great title. So anyone who's been resisting adopting the tools of our time has got the absolute, CNBC healthcare journalist, telling them, validating the excuses they've been making that this is a bust, that this doesn't work. And I think what we've got to realize is that fundamentally the article's made a major judgment error. It's tried to conclude that telemedicine is video consulting with a doctor. It's not. Telemedicine goes
Yeah, that's
right
one
back.
question I had, David. Excuse me for interrupting. Yeah, when you say telemedicine, exactly what do you mean?
So tele means remote, and
Okay,
we all know what medicine means. It's
right,
delivery of care, it's this provision of healthcare to people.
right.
So we all know what those two words mean, where they come from. And actually, when Marconi invented wireless, not far from where I am today, out in the Atlantic, a ship sunk, the Titanic, and it had this bizarre new room on it, full of technology. It was called the Marconi Room, and it was where rich people could send messages to New York to tell them they were coming and what they were thinking and stuff like that. And people thought it was the most stupid, superfluous thing that you'd put on the ship that had everything. And within minutes of it hitting an iceberg, the Marconi room was being used for one of the most valuable things that was ever seen in the history of technology. Within a year of wireless being invented, to go into rescuing people because they sourced all these boats from everywhere to redivert them and tell them to come and pick all these people that have been shipwrecked up. And that saved hundreds of lives. So telemedicine is not new. It's not a bust. And when you say it's a bust, often it's because we just presume it's there. I mean, you put your hand in your pocket now and literally you pull out a phone, you press three buttons on it, 911, and you are dialing billions of pounds worth of infrastructure, 250,000 employed paramedics and EMTs in America who organize themselves 24 hours a 7 with advanced vehicles full of technical medical equipment to come to your aid. That's using location-based pings. That's using lots of technology that people are completely unaware of. And so we say telemedicine is a bust. Well, I'll tell you what, you go out for a long walk into the middle of nowhere with your children without a phone today. Because I remember the days when, down there on the beach, there was, a child died and there was no mobile phone. And I can tell you the trauma that caused people who were around there, that unaided life support was being given, and that you didn't know if someone was coming. You didn't know the emergency services didn't know what to send. Did they send a helicopter, two ambulances, one ambulance, a doctor? Nothing. So telemedicine has absolutely, apart from being a bust, it's been this massive efficiency gain. It's incredibly efficient for the management of emergency medicine. The whole thing is based on the fact that we have telemedicine. We all have a mobile phone. 300 million people in America have a mobile phone. All of them have an ability to press a button on it. And, for 10 years now, the vast majority, like 99% of emergency 911 calls have all originated from mobile phones. Even if there's a landline there, no one will be stupid enough to pick the landline up.
Excuse me, Dave. Are you saying that you think it's a bust, or just the way it's being used is a bust?
No. It underpins the very efficiency of our job. If a doctor leaves for work this morning without their mobile phone, it's the only thing they would go back to pick up. There's always another scalpel at work. There's always another blood pressure monitor at work. There's always another pager at work. There's always one. But if your mobile phone's left at home, you can even borrow money off your colleagues. But you know, if your mobile phone's left at home, you go home, you turn around the car and you go back and pick it up. So, you know, what's happened is mobile has disrupted telemedicine. So, and then this is where I said, so when I wrote a blog about this article, I said, I think it's captured it really well. The sort of stock photo that was used was a photo of a white man in a white coat with a stethoscope tapping at his mobile phone. And actually, that's a perfectly useful depiction of telemedicine. But if I take you to watch, and I posted a video of it, a patient using an alive core ECG, maybe on their smartwatch, on their Apple Watch, or maybe on the back, you know, super glued to the back of their phone. If you get that patient, and we've got some elderly patients who use those on their supercomputer mobile phone, and you realise that healthcare has become a mobile experience. Someone seeing them giving their ECG thinks they're just using their mobile phone, doesn't know what they're doing. It's so discreet. The doctors that can read and report with those patients as they get them and monitor them, you know, they can be casually dressed, working from home, sitting on the, you know, overlooking the beach like I am.
Yeah.
They don't have to be where the patient is, but immediately they can be conducting. So if you're a different time zone and I'm you know, a registered licensed doctor in your region, I can be offering that. So essentially, mobile has, the healthcare experience has become a mobile experience. So using the word telemedicine has been killed by mobile, because if you ask that patient how close do they feel to their care, they've never felt closer.
Yeah, let me just interject. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before I forget, I want to raise a topic that certainly is important, and I'm sure you've addressed it in the past. So, by the way, that background is not done by programming. That's a real background of that Dave's in Ireland. Beautiful spot. And I was saying before, it doesn't look frazzled. Okay, one issue, of course, that needs to be addressed. Now, do you feel that patients will self-diagnose themselves? They'll download these programs and use, say, the EKG monitor or whatever to self-diagnose? How does that fit in?
So I think this is another presumption that's been made in the article, and it's quite a common thing, is that GPs all day are diagnosing. And we actually had this discussion. Valerie Morris chipped in and she said, David, don't kid yourself. Telemedicine won't replace traditional doctor-patient consultation, which includes, in capital letters, examination. Vocationally trained GPs know the risks involved if you don't examine a patient. And guess what? Medical indemnity is higher for patients who engage in telemedicine, because we're all taught in medical school that the clinical skills of patient examination, one must always lay one's hands on your patient before formulating a diagnosis. Telemedicine has its benefits, but it cannot replace face-to-face doctor-patient interaction. And I think there is the fundamental understanding. People are presuming that telemedicine must be about diagnosis and prescribing medicines, but actually you can provide care management, you can provide follow-up calls, you can provide coaching, you can provide mental health awareness and you know, just honest discussions. You can support carers. Carers don't want a diagnosis. The patient's already diagnosed in the other room. They want to know, how can I better, dress this wound? Do you know, this is not, they're not looking for a diagnosis. So we're all presuming that this is all about diagnosis. Most of the interactions you as a GP will have with a patient shouldn't be about diagnosis. If they are, you're probably doing the job wrong.
Right. Okay.
Because particularly you're not preempting stuff.
So that's simply part of the experience.
If I'm diagnosing and prescribing you bariatric treatment, okay, let's go back a few years and say, well, maybe I coached you on about your health and you didn't turn so obese that the only intervention we could do with you was a surgical intervention. Right. So this is the role of GPs. But actually what we have, and this doctor commented back again and said, look, quick comment, busy surgery today, 2 emergencies this morning, child and adult, managed here and then sent to the emergency department. And I'm only halfway through my morning list of patients. Lunchtime is a home visit to see palliative patients. How on earth do you provide care using telemedicine? My answer to that is quite simple. This doctor is presuming that I think the benefits of telemedicine is an excuse for under-resourcing GP services. It's not.
Hmm.
But it's for, the carer who's with that palliative patient at home, right? That patient is in that carer is in an absolute abhorrent situation, okay? And what they've got today is a frazzled doctor coming around at the only time that actually fits into their busy schedule. Do you think, in your experience, John, that a patient like that, a carer like that, might not prefer that when they're ready for a call and they want to have a discussion, and when their family around, a unfrazzled doctor who's rested, who's maybe a retired doctor at the end of their career, who couldn't go in and do the hard work like this, Valerie Morris is doing, maybe isn't up, physically for doing that work, could sit on a nice couch like this and talk to those patients while they're looking after their palliative patient. Do you not think that would be better?
Yeah.
Do you not think that, people have the skills, the community help that can do some of the things that palliative patients need?
Yeah.
And that talking to a doctor in an unrushed, we know that doctor needs to go home and have some lunch and needs to go back. So actually, you feel an onus as a patient or a carer that they're around your house and you've only got them for these few minutes and they have to do everything in those minutes. So sometimes, a video consult with someone who's got all your medical records is an opportunity for us to just do things differently and improve the service that patients like palliative care patients are having in their homes. It's not one or the other,
Yeah.
And then I think,
Are you
and then I
saying,
think another
David?
thing.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you saying that a team approach could be used? A doctor that sees the patient in their office, a busy doctor, as you probably know, they have appointments every 7 minutes, is complemented by a doctor that does teleconsults? Is that what you're
Well,
saying, or are you saying that
this
one
is
doctor
probably
should do it all?
well, this is the problem with the medical education. We're not teaching team play. Okay, they do medical education and they go out and they got to work as part of a team. They're not trained fundamentally to do teamwork.
Yeah.
That's happening. Stanford Medical School is doing a pioneering program on that, using the iPad syllabus that they've got, where they measure all the different students of the group and they participate in groups and you learn teamwork fundamentally to how to work with patients. But it is pretty ridiculous to think that we're not working as part of a team as a GP, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's also undermining of those carers and the role that they're playing. And we often find that patients want to call us who are carers, and they actually find this really bizarre thing that's happened because of misunderstandings about how medical records can be used. But they will go to a GP and they'll say, I'm the carer for my mother or my mother-in-law or whatever, and I would like to talk to you about her health, about her treatment. And the doctor says, well, I can't do that because the mother's not with you. So my patient's not here, therefore I can't help you.
Right.
And so you say, wow, so we're not, this is the person who's doing probably most of the care for this patient. And we're not treating them with the respect that they can access this. And I think this is what's changing. As we move into mobile healthcare, we get in patients with things like Apple Healthcare Records, who can not only access their medical record, but can share it really simply and easily, securely with someone remotely. And that changes the game. And I think what we're talking about here, if you read this article on CNBC, we're talking about sort of like a banking sector, right? And we're saying telephone banking won't work. Well, telephone banking wouldn't work if the person at the bank couldn't see my medical account records and I couldn't see my account records. Okay, telephone banking would be a complete dud. I'd phone you up, hello, John, can you transfer money to this account? Well, no, I can't even see that account. How much money have you got in that account? I don't know. It would just be a circuitous conversation where nothing happens. And actually, a lot of telemedicine video consults today with these random doctors run by insurance companies who've got weird business models and breaching patient privacy in weird ways, they are exactly like telephone banking without anyone having access to the medical record, without anyone accessing the banking records. But that doesn't mean that a video consult with a doctor who's got your medical records, who you can share your medical records with, is a dud, is a bust. It just means you've got to do the medical record bit first. Now, this isn't new to me. When we launched 3G Doctor over 10 years ago, we had this built. Professor John Buckman taught me from his work, putting a video on the internet, which I watched and learned from, and then I went and met him, that you could actually do a lot of your consults and you can manage to take a lot of history from patients using these electronic tools of the internet. Do that before the consult, and then the consult makes a lot of difference, makes a big benefit. But yeah, you know, the insurers that are paying for these video consulting businesses in America, they're not in the business of giving their patients automate or, you know, access to the medical records.
Right.
So they've jumped to what patients want, which is a video call with a doctor who knows about their medical records, but they're giving them a random doctor who doesn't know what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta be kind of smart in how you do. And I've provided lectures. I've actually done a lecture before with you about that. I've provided lectures around the world about how to do video consults with patients. You do not start with video consulting with a random doctor. If you look up Doctors 2.0 Paris, I've put in my name, David Doherty. I explain this in about 7 or 8 minutes and how we do it and why we do it and the advantages of it. But I think also, you know, if you look at what VC money is doing in subsidizing these video consults, you know, they look at this as a power play of getting market traction. And people are being very vulnerable at the moment, and they're sharing their data online in exchange for online services. So Google, for example, started offering free video calls to doctors. They're paid for by a big VC funded company called, I think it was Doctors on Demand. They paid the background of it. And essentially what you had was patients getting a free call. But what were you giving away? Yeah. And I think if I turn around to people like Valerie and I said, Valerie, if you put a notice up in your waiting room and it said, your GP consult is going to be free today, and you're going to see a doctor straight away. There's going to be no time. You're going to spend no more than 5 minutes in the waiting room. But I'm going to get all your information and sell it to every single third-party company in the world forevermore. I think people would walk out of that thing and they'd go to the next door with a 2-hour queue.
Yeah.
But somehow online, these people are tricking people, fooling people, and also acting on the urgency that people have for, you know, picking up their phone and doing stuff because they're familiar doing that with other things. You know, you pick up my phone here and I press a button and I've got some stuff delivered tomorrow from Amazon. So why shouldn't I get healthcare services kind of, you know, at the same sort of speed? And that's allowing these companies to be a little bit snidey and cheeky, but they're getting caught. You know, people aren't that gullible. And carers definitely aren't. They've got children and healthy parents and stuff that they care a little bit more and are considered when they're ill.
Well, you know, there's no question the world's getting more mobile. When I go to the bank now, there's a bigger line at the mobile window where you can do everything mobile than you can with the teller. There's no question. And you know, Tim Cook has said for a while, the CEO of Apple, that they're planning a big health move that's going to dwarf the sales of their other products. And you mentioned that in one of your articles.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Do you think, and I'm kind of, you know, Tim Cook is an intelligent guy. I think he sees the world as getting more mobile, and that includes the healthcare field.
Yeah, well, just look at what they've done for the valuation of Apple. Become the biggest corporation in the world with the most profit margin, and it's a product loved by everyone. A company that really knows how to do marketing and advertising really well, and delivers a product that, you know, over delivers and doesn't over promise. You know.
Yeah.
And when they say that they've got a business that's going to dwarf that current business model.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
yeah, he sees,
you know, a company bigger than GDPR of massive countries.
Yeah, he sees the world changing. He sees it getting to be a more mobile world, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's where he's kind of betting. Who knows what Apple's doing behind the scenes, because they're a very closed company. They don't really disclose to the public what they're doing. And
no, but the main one thing very clear.
Everyone was kind of wondering, well, what do they have planned? What do they have? Are they going to buy this company? Are they going to buy that? But I think Cook is just basically saying, hey, the world's changing. They're going to come to us. And we're not going to have to buy a company, you know, a big telemedicine company. This is essentially going to change, and they're going to adapt to the changes.
Well, I think it's very valuable because what he said really clearly is that they will not try and serve the needs of reimbursement, because that's not what patients need. Yeah. And I think in that is a fascinating thing, because if you look at any of these major video consulting companies in America, they've all gone after the reimbursement model. And people don't understand. This is why it's really hard for doctors who go it alone and want, you know, patients come in and self-pay to make any money in America, because everyone thinks this bit is free. And actually, the insurers have just bluffed everyone with this model that somehow, you know, giving all your medical records to an insurance company is going to give you more value for money. It doesn't, because when you share really confidential information with a doctor, sometimes that can increase your premiums over the year. So it would be a bit like describing every detail of your car driving experience with your car insurance company. You know, some people drove to work this morning, maybe they crunched a gear or they drove over a curb. They didn't ring up their car insurance company and say, hey, I drove over 2 curbs and I drove fast near a child's playground, and the car insurance company would just, it would be ridiculous to happen. But we're doing that for primary care, and there is a past. And what people need is a different type of model. And this health insurance model in America isn't fixing the problem. It is the problem. And so Apple has made it really clear that they don't have to focus on reimbursement. And that's really prominent, because every insurance company in America is bending over backwards to work with Apple. And they're saying the door's closed. We'll work with you, but our focus on making this future company, the future of what Apple is, that's going to do what we currently do, is this new model where it's not about reimbursement. And we have the unique, that, you know, Apple has a unique privilege because of its huge capital and because of its huge trust and brand. It doesn't have to care about reimbursement. And people that underestimate the, you know, the upside of this aren't getting how they think they're going to, you know, transform the biggest company in the world into a company that has never before the size of and the trust levels. And is it going to happen? Yeah. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Apple. It's going to be Tim Cook.
Yeah.
But, you know, fair play. It will teach the whole world how healthcare should be, you know, how it should be done. So it's going to be great. But I think they're going to try in different markets first, because the US market is going to, or they're going to have patients that really believe in this new way of doing medicine. And Mike, the guy that produced that little animation about obesity and about exercise, in employing him, I think they've shown that they are different. They're approaching healthcare very differently. And the watch is fantastic. Some of the stuff that's happening on the watch and the support they give to the healthcare companies. You know, they've got inside, they're showing all the healthcare leaders now a tour. They're giving them a tour of healthcare experiences. It's fantastic. And I see medics going around it and they're blown over by this evolution of how medicine's going. Apple's showing that behind the scenes, is getting feedback, and then it's coming back to the market with, this is how this works.
Well, you know that Tim.
You've seen health records, yeah?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned in business, in the small business I had, was that you cannot tell a market where to go. The market tells you where to go. And when you try to change a market, like you've been saying, you can't really change the way people think. You kind of adapt to the way they think. Adapt your model that way. And I think that's what Cook has planned. I can remember researching Apple, you know, what people they were hiring, what little companies are getting, to see what they were going to do. But essentially, he was just basically waiting for people to adapt to the market. I mean, you know, the market's going to tell you where to go, and like you said, the mobile's telling you that's where they want to go.
Have you used Apple Health Records yet?
No, not yet.
Did you see the demonstration they did at Rick Blumenfield did at the HIMSS?
No, I did not.
Well, it was amazing.
Who did that?
So they've got Ricky Bloomfield is the doctor they've got leading up the healthcare record product.
Can you post that link so people can see it, Dave?
I can. It's actually on my.
I'll put it on the Facebook if you just tell me the link, because the few people that are watching all around the world, we can let them know.
Yeah. So if you say so March the 7th on my blog.
Okay, go to your blog and okay, let me go to
Yeah,
your.
can I send you a message on this? Can I send you a message on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. You can send it on.
on
It
chat
has a
on what
chat.
on
Yeah,
this,
it has a chat option there on
and
this
then you
Google.
can just yeah.
Yeah, I
And
can
it's a video.
copy
And
and
what's
paste.
fascinating about that is HIMSS bills itself as the, and this shows you how disruptive mobile is. HIMSS bills itself as the biggest organization, health management, and showing people how to use IT with healthcare services. And I think 70,000 people read it. So CEO of former chair of Google, Eric Schmidt, went up, massive room, huge room, great microphones, huge PowerPoint slides behind him, size of a double-decker bus. It looks fantastic. In a little side room on a sort of box, you'll see Ricky Blomfield there, and you'll see him doing a demo of Apple's Health app.
Well,
And how you see that? You
this
see it there?
this is a great tech. I'm able to post the link you're talking about. Uh,
Cool, cool. So what
Maybe
happens is,
on the Facebook account. Yeah.
so there's no live stream from HIMSS, okay?
Okay.
But when you let these pesky patients come along, and this one's called Dave DeBronkhart, patient Dave DeBronkhart, and this is what naturally patients do when they go to health IT conferences. They just pick up their phone and record what's in front of them. Probably breaches all the guidelines that would be given to media who attend a conference like this. But the incredible thing is, here's Apple's clinical and health informatics lead showing something where he's basically going to, different hospitals, different payers, and pulling down healthcare records from Dignity Health, Duke Health, UNC Healthcare. And I tell people this is happening in America, and they say this couldn't happen. There's no way this can happen. And these are American doctors some of the times, and they're saying, nah, you wouldn't be able to do that. And they've already done it. And then a lot of people criticize. Harvard Business Review then wrote an article critiquing exactly this, that this actually happened, and this is going to be any good, and that no one else is going to adopt it. Because when they announced this beta, there was only like 11 companies. Before that article, Harvard Business Review, had been published, that 27 companies had signed up. Now over 50 companies have signed up, organizations have signed up. And the really interesting thing about this is, I think it's taken Apple into, they've just moved so quickly with this, and it shows you how powerful the mobile market is in these big tech companies. And they've moved so quick. I mean, what's stopping a legal firm setting up a thing where they will use, they can call it AI or whatever, but algorithms just to read people's medical history and say, hey, there's a mistake. You could be in with, the opportunity to, make a six-figure sum from your health insurance company. Because they've made, the doctors have made there's a medical negligence issue here. And so we're very fastly moving this train towards a place where, like I can see Ricky Blomfield's immunizations, lab results, and all that. A decent doctor would probably able to see, there's a couple of little weird things there that you can query why they did that. And
you didn't go, were you at the conference there where he presented?
No, colleague was. But I mean, you can watch this stuff and you can quickly pick up by looking at him and looking at some of the results he's getting and the schedules of what he's doing.
Does
And you can
he talk about the future and where they think they're going to go?
Well, just watch the video, but he sort of gives very much a demo. And then what he says is, anyone wants a job, come to our little like pop-up stand.
Really?
And so, so at the end of I write this mHealth Insight, this review of things that I see happen with mobile healthcare. And I said, look, if you want a pay rise and you work in health IT, say you've been offered a job by Apple.
Yeah.
Because they're going to pay more money than anyone to relocate you. They're going to, if you want to get a pay rise from work, just mention that. And I put a little joke up on Twitter. I said, look at the line for the queue. And it was some big new show opening in Las Vegas at the time, and these people queued around the block. And I said that was the queue of health IT staff looking for new jobs at Apple. But it's fascinating because they've completely disrupted the market. As soon as you have your healthcare record, well, why can't you have a consult with another doctor and have a second opinion? And why do I need to see my harangue doctor who's driven crazy by demand, when I can speak to someone who knows about me and I know about them? And maybe this isn't about a diagnosis. Maybe this is about a review of the medications that I'm on, the drugs that I'm taking. Maybe I think my mum's getting too many drugs. Can I go and have a conversation with her GP about that?
Yeah.
Not really. That doesn't really work. So there's a whole new area. Will it improve healthcare? Well, it will if it's done ethically. And so that's what companies like us are about, and that's why we share stuff and write about this future before it arrives. But is it a bad thing? Well, the funny thing I throw back at doctors is if this was such a bad thing, this idea of video consulting like we're doing now, okay, why do doctors have those services for their own healthcare? So in the UK, the BMA have provided exactly this for every single doctor in the UK free of charge. So the BMA is all about evidence-based medicine, all about the mental health of doctors. So why are people who are trained and believe, so many of them believe, that if they don't lay their hands on a patient, they can't do anything with them? Why do they believe that when they're sick, they can get video consult advice? What's so much more special about them?
Yeah.
In fact, I think doctors are more likely to need someone to sit there and hold their hand.
Well, Dave, I will see that video, but is Apple's position that the patient should own their healthcare records?
I think Apple's quite enlightened about that. I think the idea of owning your healthcare records is something we all have to move beyond. Okay, it's a term that was developed for the ownership of property. Okay, which doesn't have zero cost of marginal cost of replication. Okay, so if I want to sell you that field behind me, I can't go and make another one of those fields. Okay, it's just that there's that one field. So property ownership terms are really, really good, and have been developed and are really robust for dealing with things like property. Me selling you this item, me selling you that piece of land. But they run into massive limitations when we get to digital products. So your medical record downloaded from Apple, via Apple, onto your mobile phone, can be shared with 3G Doctor, can be shared with an urgent care clinic. You can show it on your phone if you met a paramedic. All those different, who owns it now? You know, ownership is a very bad term, and we have to move beyond that.
Okay.
Apple's aware of patient being accessible and in control, and ownership is a different thing,
So
because I might want to delete it. I might want to delete my medical record. Let's just say me and you had a consult, and then I just disliked what was going on in that consult, and I just deleted it.
Okay.
You'd still be liable for all the advice you gave me based on that information.
Right.
As much as I'd love to delete all the medical records of every doctor in the world and start afresh, it would probably get a lot of them off a lot of mistakes they've made.
Right.
It would also stop us learning from those mistakes, and it would make them pretty indefensible in court cases if anyone took a medical negligence. In the UK and Ireland, they normally take about 10, 15 years to get to court.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I can delete it at the press of a button because I own it, that's going to have manifest problems with protecting patients and protecting doctors. So it's not going to work as simply as many people would like to think. If I own it, can I rip it up? No, it's not like, you know, it's not like that. We have to keep record. We have to know. We have to be able to audit how many antibiotics we're prescribing. We have to be able to, you know, your care is not just for you. And that's why a lot of trust is needed. And Apple's going in on this on a trust issue.
Do you see it as like a joint ownership? Do you visualize the scenario, the optimum scenario of kind of like a joint ownership between the doctor and the patient of the records, and that the patient has more of a percentage of the share? Would that be an accurate assessment?
I hope we get to a situation where we trust people enough to do stuff for us. I think the whole thing of trust in a doctor relationship is fundamental. So at 3G Doctor, we basically store your medical records. We can take it completely offline at any point, where we keep a store of it because we have to for medical negligence. We've always done that. I believe a patient who comes to us has to be given that piece of trust. I also think we have to give that patient some assurance that we're not selling that to 1,000,001 companies. And most of these video consulting companies are not promising patients that. They are writing on their terms and conditions that they do not provide, you know, medical services. It's quite unbelievable. You can go on these big telemedicine companies that video consult with a doctor, and it will say, we are a website. We facilitate you talking to a doctor. And then they tell you things like they video record the consult. And then they are selling that information or using that information. You think, God, no wonder you can offer this so cheap. You can offer this so cheap because if that person ever goes to an insurance company at any time in the future, you're the most accurate person to measure his risk. And so, Google did this recently. They did this with the Royal Free Hospital in London. They went and built an app for dialysis and gave it to the hospital. But in exchange for that free app that they gave the hospital, they took 1.6 million NHS patients' full comprehensive medical records. Now, those medical records, in order to put them into that electronic database that the NHS has got, which is government-owned, state-funded, must have cost billions of pounds. How much is it worth to Apple? As we move into a health insurance model in the UK, because of political interest in that, they're in a unique position to absolutely monetize what they got in exchange for probably some free flights for the clinicians and the health IT people, and a free app that they had to build for a hospital. And so that's been quite widely criticized in the New Scientist and Cambridge paper, but that's a company called DeepMind, which is parent owned by Google. So it still gets around this thing of they're not Google, but and then they promise these things in their terms and conditions that say, we won't use this in Google's search business. You're like, well, of course you won't. You'll use it in their future business, which has nothing to do with search. Back-end services selling them to the healthcare companies, So where's the patient who's got dialysis getting a benefit where Google monetized this? Where are the million-plus patients who had no dialysis and didn't use that app? How are they possibly getting any upside of this? They're not. This is their crookery. And it's this crookery which is undermining trust. And it's this crookery that companies like mine fight tooth and nail to overcome so that patients can trust us and work with us. Because a guy called Tommy Mahone and Alan Moore wrote a book years ago called Communities Dominate Brands. And anyone I ever work with, I make them read it and teaches them this fundamental thing. I think older doctors knew this always. The stuff you knew, you could break your teeth, you wouldn't give it up. It was cut your fingers off. Doctors just kept those secrets, and now you can't even keep those secrets because you're being told to put them into electronic healthcare records, and those healthcare record companies have got other business models where they're selling it to. You just had a big company in America sold the drug company Roche, at billions of pounds. And so, this one, the one that does the EMR for most of the oncologists.
Who's that? Epic?
No, it's a company. Smaller company that started up and it grew and then it got acquired. And you look at these companies, especially ones that are doing VC deals. When they go to the wall, the whole idea of taking VC money on while you hold patient medical records is really shifting.
Yeah. Because
most of these VCs want 8, 9 of their companies expect them to go to the wall. So they're going to do a fire sale on you. That fire sale is they're going to kick you out as a CEO and they're going to sell your medical records to whoever, wherever they can.
Yeah.
And so patients have got to be, I don't know how we're going to get people briefed on the ethics of all of this, but I think Apple's in a good position to do it because it doesn't have to make money. It doesn't have to get a return on this new business venture it's doing,
There's one question I'd like to raise now that you raised this point. Do you think we obviously missed the boat of analysis of big data because of privacy concerns of so many companies not being interoperative with other companies? Do you think we missed the boat entirely with analysis of big data? Because to me, that's one of the promises of the EMR is analysis of big data to see what treatment works for certain things. But because of the lack of interoperability, it's hard to do. Do you think we'll ever get around that?
I think there's a lot of cart before horse. The company that Roche acquired was called Flatiron. There's just anyone who's listening wants to look that company up. Flatiron was the company they acquired, Flatiron Health. But yeah, in terms of that point, really good point. But again, we go into this thing of video consulting. Okay, so if video consulting is such a bust, okay, which is what I thought that article really was talking about, how can we possibly move to this thing where we use big data? Where are you going to discuss this big data? Where are you going to make clinical decisions based on this big data? Are you going to do it with your GP who had 1 week of statistics education? who is sitting there frazzled in between patients with direct clinical needs, bandages and emergency, transfers required, or someone who's sitting like this, who's got a PhD in statistics, who's got a video call to another person who's sitting over there who's got a PhD in data analytics, medical, showing information and charting it and presenting this in ways that patients understand it. I think that's where this stuff's really going to come into its own. And we see that with genetic counselling. Genetic counselling is incredibly hard to do. There's loads of need for it, a massive demand for it. People can't do it. Dermatology. I mean, we've got images of skin, really good images of skin, and we've got consultative opportunities to talk about them and help people and monitor them and manage them. The diagnosis has been done. You've got to use these emollients. You've got to change this diet. You've got to do these things. This is not diagnostic stuff. This is ongoing support people need. They don't need that support from frazzled frontline people who are working with patients who have got immediate medical needs. There's a business for them, and we must resource them because they do such a critically important piece of work. But we've got to actually say, well, for some of these other roles, what if we can manage enough big data that tells us all about obesity? We can manage enough about we know where the biggest avoidable healthcare costs are, and we're just not applying stuff to it. There's so much we're not even. I know that there's gestational diabetes is the largest, most avoidable cost that this country faces. I'm going to show you the numbers that show it. What are we doing to early intervene? We're teaching people they've got diabetes when they're pregnant. We're doing very little follow-up. We're not getting real-time data from the glucometers they're using. We're not, we're making them make more physical office visits.
Yeah.
It's a complete and utter disaster. So we're just doing more of the same.
Yeah.
So big data, we couldn't handle what we've got already.
Yeah.
What should be happening is people who are diagnosed gestational diabetes are being predicted before they develop it and are being put on coaching sessions like this, not with doctors who are able to do aortic aneurysms and treat people there, but by counselors, coaches, people who've got those other skills that can talk to those people at the times that suit those people, not in a, you've just become pregnant. You don't want to start trooping into GP all the time or an endocrinologist all the time. You've got other things to get sorted in your life. So why not this? Why not this interaction? All of them I've never met a pregnant woman in the last 10 years that hasn't got a mobile phone. And most of them, vast majority, smartphone. So why aren't we using that tool with them and relax people, people who know how to do therapy, people who know how to coach and inspire people with personal trainers that can talk to people like this? Seems pretty simple to me.
Does 3G doctor get into that at all? Counseling patients? And
it's really vague what vague people can do, but we try and do it on an interaction because at the moment we're not joined up with all the other services. But this is the problem that, the GPs think, well, where would I get time to do telemedicine? Well, in that case, then partner. Because, the banks, the airlines, they fought that for a long time. They used to think, where would we get time to run a website? We're all busy selling tickets in the lobby of the airport. How could we possibly run a website and a telephone line and, all those things? And if you look at those businesses back through history, they were actually run by people in literally in travel agents and on desks in front of clients. This doesn't fit. The two things don't fit. If you go to Barclays, Royal Bank of Scotland in England, their busiest time is 7 o'clock in the morning because people are commuting to work and people use their banking service then. So what doctors are going to find is the demand times are going to just shift radically. The need for when patients want to interact with their health will be very different to the normal interaction times. And so that will support other things like home working careers. I lectured at the biggest medical school in Ireland a few weeks ago, and the whole room, I'd say 70–80% of it was female. So what a great opportunity for home working. No one's talking home working for sorting out this career's terrible burn rate terrible early retirement rate, you know.
Well, this kind of shifting gears here a little bit, David. Do you feel that Europe is ahead of America as far as the mHealth incorporation of mHealth into the healthcare?
Well, America's got
In
the
your
big
experience,
companies. It's got
I don't know how
Google.
much. Have you been? You've been over here, right? I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah, loads of fun.
and I'm sure you
Loads
keep tabs on what's going on. Do you feel that Europe is further ahead? Are they more receptive to the mHealth experience than America? Do you feel?
a big challenge you guys, primary care has been really undermined. These health insurers, these big hospitals have, pushed this primary care into the non-existence realm. And we've got really strong primary care here. Our government's doing everything to undermine it by under-resourcing it. Um, they're making it harder to become a GP, longer training programs. GPs in England and Ireland, when they go for the exam, believe this or not, John, young people don't believe this, but it is true. If you turn up to your RCGP exam with a mobile phone, you've got it in the exam room, in your pocket, in your jacket, whatever, you immediately fail.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But every single patient you're going to meet in your entire career is going to have a mobile phone that is at least as powerful as an iPhone X. You will have a mobile phone at least as powerful as an iPhone X in your pocket for the rest of your career. Yet you're not being taught to work with patients that have supercomputers full of the world's information, accessing the world's information.
Right.
But isn't that just this weird? So what I'm trying to tell these organizations, medical indemnity organizations as well, is that you should be moving towards this future where you should be testing people on their ability to use the internet with patients. Mm-hmm. These two must not be precluding one another. Mm-hmm. And that's why people say, well, I don't understand telemedicine, because the last thing many doctors want is a patient who's done online research. The reality is, as soon as Apple healthcare record ends up in a pocket, the second thing you're going to do when you download your medical record is start Googling stuff that you see in it. And so the idea of going to a random doctor or walking into a busy doctor in a busy clinic environment who's frazzled with the clinical demand that's waiting in the next patient in the waiting room, right. This is just not a suited person to do it. So it's a bit like this big data thing. You go in there with all your big data. How is this doctor equipped to facilitate you and help you with that conversation? Well, and how are you equipped as a patient to transfer that information physically to that person? How can I dump that data on them? I can't. Whereas a remote doctor, like a 3G doctor, we're all set up just to serve that type of scenario. And at the moment, we're doing it with patients who have typically looked on forums, who have, read things, who have Googled things, who have, and people say, and what the trick is, a lot of the video consulting companies come along because they get VC money, they got to get a return on that. And so they say, we'll get into the prescribing business. So they're really prompted to make revenues and sell prescriptions. And they're really, online drug dispensers. And that doesn't suit the market of talking about information. Because if what I want to do is get you off the call by making some money out of you, I'm not really interested in discussing the things we're discussing. You've got your head.
Yeah, I'm just showing your blog, David, mHealthinsight.com. That's where I originally ran across Dave's comments on telemedicine. And let me just quickly go to the 3G doctor. I don't know. Do you know how to screen share with this platform, David? Maybe you could take us through your website. Do you want to take us through here really quickly to show what you're doing at 3G Doctor? Just tell me where to go. Tell me where to go.
You send me, please consult with a doctor.
Okay. Consult with doctor now. Okay.
You put your mobile phone number and password in. You get sent an email that you'll then have to open up and show us all your email accounts.
Okay, we won't do that now, but essentially you put your number in there and you receive an email from you and you explain what to do.
Exactly. So you go to register. You'd go to register, and then what happens is you get the pick from a drop-down questionnaire or start with a keyword. So you might want to put in discuss a web page.
Oh, okay.
And then what will happen is you'll proceed through the questionnaire. It tells about your concerns, free text box. You can write, you could have it pre-written. You could copy and paste it from a Word document. You might have been trying to write what you'd love to tell a doctor.
Okay.
Your notes from an exam you've had today. And then you send that to the doctor. The doctor reads, reviews that before video calling you. So
Okay.
basically, you know those patients that are, a lot of doctors will call them heart sinks. They come in with the notes.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of doctors go, oh, really can't stand the patient who comes in. He's got a big list of stuff. We are the doctors that help patients with lists.
Do you see
Because
patients
actually,
from overseas, or is it strictly?
no, unfortunately, only UK and Ireland our doctors are licensed.
Okay, it's the British
Yeah,
Isles and Ireland.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good.
Which
Well,
is a shame. I think it's another thing that, you know, the medical authorities have to expand on. You know, we've got amazing doctors in this country, and some of them are really busy, like this doctor who's having this Twitter dialogue with me. Other ones are so fascinated with the job that they're early retirement. They're the best GPs in the world. Our older GPs in the UK and Ireland, you will not, you've got to come and meet them because you'll just be amazed at what they can pick up and diagnose. And the reality is they're all going for early retirement. They're just fed up with typing rubbish into electronic healthcare record systems that big tech companies are profiteering out of, and insurance companies are wrangling around with. So they're fed up with that, but we've got this opportunity to let them interact with patients who want
oh
to
yeah,
discuss
you
lists
know, that's
that they
another
take to the doctor.
issue that you brought up, David. The crowdsourcing, that potential for crowdsourcing to the medical minds of the world with the internet, just crowdsourcing, that you can pick the minds of doctors that have been around a while. I do it in neurosurgery. We run into elder neurosurgeons that are retiring, and I hope to convince them to stay online, to impart all they've learned through their career to the younger neurosurgeons. And I'm sure it applies to the GPs of the British Isles. Of
Yeah, we're loving this new thing that FaceTime's just brought in. It's this group FaceTime. So I can sit here and I can video call new people. And I've got a colleague in Harley Street who's got a clinic there, and it's like his house. You come to the door, you come into there, you see a clinician, and then they get other clinicians from around the area to come in and see you. So it's this really comprehensive, beautiful primary care, and I'm trying to scale that as big, you know, as a make it more efficient, make it you know, more accessible, that you don't have to walk in the door. And this group FaceTime is just incredible on that model, because it's
yeah,
all older doctors, really experienced doctors. They can all take a call from a GP who realizes this is what they need. And then you realize all this waiting time has disappeared for the patient.
yeah,
So soon we're going to be in a situation where you can walk in on Harley Street in London, and the patient can be manipulated, felt, touched, and all that. And then on the wall can appear all these different people that have got different aspects and can see the medical record and can interact. And it's just quite an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do. And so when people say this is a bust, no. What's a bust is what we're currently doing. You know,
yeah,
doctors driving backwards and forwards, doing all these things, unnecessary visits, patients inappropriately taking up the wrong doctor's time. You know,
yeah,
we've got the opposite model where we have the doctor pick the patient. So if you look at a lot of these video consult companies, they do this weird thing where the patient picks the doctor based on what they look like, what their credentials are, and stuff like that. But I've always found that the best doctors are people who've got lived life experiences of things. So it might be that, you know, you've got an allergy in your child, and you know, so I'm going to pair you with a doctor, and you know what, he might be just a GP, or you know, not a massive specialist in this area, but his incredible life experience with his own child having an allergy. Now that might not be told to you during the consult, but you will feel it in terms of the interest that doctor has in this area, the interest that doctor has in direct consumer advertising that you've probably consumed, because she's been watching it a lot as well.
yeah,
And what the viable real world things that you can do that can improve stuff. So again, it's not about a diagnosis, it's about, you know, the type of food stuff that you can put in front of your child to make them eat better when they've got these allergies. So those type of things, having the doctor pick the patient once you've got the medical record beforehand. And they do this in the banks. They've been doing this for years. You know, if you're a very high net worth client, you don't get rung up by the guy who's on his first week.
yeah.
The call center software gets you called up by one of the managers, yeah?
Yeah.
And it's a different type of call, and it's a bit more keyed into you spending more money, investing more money with the bank. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we using these tools, these CRM tools in medicine? Why is everyone going for the same funnel?
Yeah.
It's not efficient. It's not good for patients. It's ruining our doctors. It's burning them out. It's causing them to early retire. It's making this profession unattractive for young people to go into it.
Yeah.
So everything that we want to, keep with the primary care is being undermined because we're trying to push everything through the same funnel.
Yeah. Well, I think medicine can learn a lot from other industries. And Dave, we'll wrap this up. We could go on,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But let me just wrap this up formally. Stay on camera. We'll talk off camera, but let me finish this formally. So thank you very
Thanks
much.
so much for all your attention.
Stay there, Dave.